Welcome back to our interview series. I'm really excited this afternoon to have Vince, the co-founder of Portsmouth Distillery, with us this afternoon. It's an amazing brand, personal brand that I followed over the last couple of years in their journey. So, Vince, sorry, welcome.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. Very pleased
No
to be here.
worries, no worries. So, Vince, just tell us, kind of in your own words, a little bit about Portsmouth Distillery. Who are you guys? What do you do?
Well, we are actually the parent company is the Rum Club Limited. We trade as the Portsmouth Distillery. The Rum Club was set up by myself and my business partner and long-term naval friend of 33 years, Giles. And it was an online rum subscription club where we imported and got hold of rums that you couldn't buy on the shelves. Whilst we were doing that, we used to talk about making our own rum, and it was all sort of pie in the sky. It was never going to happen. I was working for Geestline at the time, and got made redundant. So I said to Giles, "Are we going to make our own rum?" He said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Oh yeah." And kind of that's where we are. So the Portsmouth Distillery finds its home in Fort Cumberland, which is an ancient monument on the southeastern tip of Portsea Island in Portsmouth. Great location, 18th century fort is a pretty good place to set up a distillery, has to be said.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
in terms of story and location and all those nice bits and pieces that you have, and you can see the picture behind me it's a picture of our Asian room with the rum. Now we call ourselves an award-winning rum distillery that makes award-winning gin. As opposed to most people when they hear the word distillery instantly think of gin. Yes,
Yeah,
we make gin. We make very good gin, but our passion, our reason for being is rum. And we were established in 2018. First gin out in the October, first rum out in the November. We've been laying rum down ever since, and we brought out England's very first ever properly bona fide, authentically made and aged rum.
amazing.
Never been aged for 3 years properly in the UK before, and we've done it.
Amazing.
Or England, actually.
It's a phenomenal story, and kind of I think a lot of people, especially in the local area, recognize the brand and the different kind of lines that you guys offer. So obviously tricky time for everyone, but just talk to us a little bit. What was the COVID era like for you? What was the COVID era like for a distillery?
Well, to be honest, the biggest impact of COVID wasn't during the pandemic. The pandemic
Okay.
for us was I hate to say it, we were sort of riding high. I mean, we furloughed pretty much everybody. I worked every single day. I'm not after sympathy. That's what I did, and I was keeping the fires burning, if you like, keeping the distillation going, keeping the laying down the rum, making the gin, etc., etc. And our online sales just took off, coupled with provision of hand sanitizer, which we did for local area and Portsmouth City Council. We also gained ourselves quite a nice contract for Govia Thames Rail Link. So at the end of the pandemic, we sort of looked at each other and went, well, what was all the fuss about?
Right.
The COVID knock on for us is right now. Now
Okay.
is when we're feeling the pressure, because the real world issues that COVID has facilitated. So the oncoming recession, the fact that people have got no money in their pockets, etc., etc., etc. Supply chain issues, blah blah blah. Those weren't felt in the drinks industry until now.
Okay.
So our slump, if you like, our real impact for COVID is we're right in it as we speak, as opposed to a lot of other people, thankfully, are coming out of it. We're now in it. So
So as you say, you're feeling the impacts of that now. Is there anything that kind of going through I guess really the COVID period up until this point that it really taught you then? Was there any big takeaways that you learned as a business owner, that you learned as a distillery that you took on board and you've continued since that period?
well, I think I suppose the big one, the main one, is the ability to adapt. The Because we're a small, you know, owned business, we can spin on a halfpenny pretty quickly and make a
Yeah.
decision and make stuff happen. So the fact that we're very resilient, and we can see a problem and come up with a solution, and because we're owned and not particularly large, we can make that decision and get stuff done So I think that I'm not sure I learned that. I kind of knew it was there. It's been demonstrated, I think, is probably the better way to answer that. But we
So,
have, since coming out of the pandemic, when people have been allowed to do stuff, we have diversified a great deal. So the other word I would use is diversification. We've had to look at what else can we do for revenue streams, and
okay,
we're very blessed that we've got a very large area around us in the fort, and we use it for event space now. And so we do sort of live at the Apollo level comedy nights once a
nice.
month. We try and do a gig with a local band once a month. We regularly host private parties, 50th birthdays, that sort of thing, corporate events. So there was that sort of, what could we do to diversify? So we're using the space a great deal more than I guess we would have done. I mean, we kind of had to try and make up some lost revenue, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
So I guess really the big message there was kind of the agileness and the ability to make a decision and change some of the
Mm,
proposition that you have to the marketplace in a fast and effective way to kind of bring back the revenue that you lost. So
mm.
that's the kind of learnings from that era. Just take us back. You said obviously naval career with you and your business partner, and then into business ownership and distillery. What's the kind of biggest lessons I guess you've had then, kind of coming from that naval background then into business ownership? What are the biggest lessons you've taken away as an owner overall?
Well, I suppose I'd say I've learned patience in many ways. When I say patience, I suppose if you want to try and answer your question on the two levels you posed it, um, in the military, not a lot of people have a lot of patience, and the reason for
Okay.
that is there's a clear command structure, there's a clear directive from above, and it percolates down, and everybody knows what they have to do, and things slot into place and stuff happens. So there's no real requirement for patience, really, in that day-to-day sort of admin process. But of course, in Civvy Street, in real world business, you very soon learn that actually you're not as important as you think you are to everybody
Okay.
else. You know, and especially when it comes to trying to get your products into larger supermarkets, things like that.
Yeah.
You very quickly have to. I mean, I'm not saying I've learned patience. Don't get me wrong. I'm still relatively impatient, but I am trying because I realise that not everybody has the same focus on your product and you, as of course you have.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's something that I would always advise people if they were starting their own business. And because I personally find it quite difficult to grapple with even now. 5 years nearly down the road.
And when you say that, it's like taking the time to appreciate things that you could get moving fast and you could execute and kind of move forward, that those around you, support networks, supply chains, etc., aren't always as
Yeah,
fast to do so.
they're not as agile, they're not as resilient. Your customer might not be as enthusiastic. Uh, you know, um, all those sort of things. Like you'll have a conversation with a lead. Not that I do the sales, but I do get involved in that, of course. But one will have a conversation with a lead, and you think, oh right, okay, that's a good lead. And 6 months down the line, you still haven't got to the detail of whether or not they're A, going to buy it, and B, how much they want when they do.
Yeah.
So and for me, I think that will, however long I'm in this business, I think I'll still find that quite difficult. But then that's a personal thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a key learn actually, because a lot of people go into business because they've got that energy and spark
Mm,
and, as you
mm.
say, resilience and determination, etc. And I think it's a
Well,
great takeaway. Sorry, go
yeah, I
on.
mean, I think it's definitely the mark of a good entrepreneur. I mean, I don't think you'll ever find an entrepreneur out there. We can name some really famous, very, very successful entrepreneurs, and I think they'd all personally attest to being impatient because I think
Yeah.
without it, I'm not saying there'd be a lack of drive, but there's less of drive, isn't there, if you're not impatient to get stuff happening.
Yeah, I think that there's the difference between that and urgency as well, and the urgency they put on things. So,
Mm.
kind of with all of that in mind, then, Vince, what would you say the biggest challenge is that you've had to overcome with Portsmouth Distillery?
Well, I suppose the short answer, and not surprisingly, is cash flow.
Okay.
When you're running your own business and you're relying on people to pay for the invoices you've given them, and of course that then slows up for whatever reason, whether it be real world, whether it be, you know, um, they just don't do it, or whatever. And then you find yourself as the product provider thinking, well, hang on a minute, I've barely got enough money to buy some more raw materials to make more product here. Um, that's always a challenge, that's not anything new, and it's not unique to the Portsmouth distillery. It's just I find that a difficult one, and it is difficult to overcome. And we've had a few sort of issues with that. The other one, and I suppose probably bigger than that, and it's more post pandemic, is logistics, supply chain.
Okay.
You know, we had a lot of problems. Where are we now? Tail end of last year with glass, because obviously they turned the pipeline off with glass
Yeah.
production during the pandemic, which then had a knock on. So we couldn't get glasses, or sorry, we couldn't get bottles, couldn't get the
Right.
bottles that we started off in, the ones we chose. We
Yeah.
had to change our bottle to a different bottle, which, and when you're the guy who designed it all and came up with the look, that
Yeah.
hurt a bit. That then knocked on into cask supply, because we age our rum, and we obviously put it into ex bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
Because there was no bottles, the bourbon boys weren't disgorging their barrels, so there were no barrels. So
Right. Okay.
so I guess they're the biggest hurdles we've had to overcome in the last few years. So yeah, but we're there now. We're back on track. So
Oh, I'm pleased. I'm pleased to hear that as well. And I think, obviously, as a business owner, I think everyone has their unique challenges. I can't imagine many industries that have challenges getting hold of bourbon barrels, as an example. But that's kind of like so real to you in your industry, the same as other businesses will have the challenges that are real to them and their industry. I think one of the most important things and most important traits, I guess, as an entrepreneur is the motivation within that individual. So, kind of on that basis, Vince, what is it that keeps you motivated? What is it that keeps you focused and driving and wanting to move the business forward?
just one word really, well, two words: quality rum. Because I'm a proper rum nut. I don't like the term expert. I've never called myself an expert in anything. Um, but I know a lot about rum, and I know a lot about good rum.
Okay.
And so I am motivated by continually searching for that great expression, that really good rum. I think we've nailed it, to the point that we have at the moment. But of course, we have England's first 3-year-old rum, and it is superb. It really is very good. And of course, going back to my earlier point of impatience, we've also got casks aging for a 5-year-old expression, maybe a 7-year-old, and definitely a 10-year-old expression.
Yeah.
So I always know that there's going to be the next one. So that's what motivates me, or what spurs me on. But also, I think a little bit more, less about me and more about Portsmouth and the distillery, the
Okay.
motivation of leaving a legacy, because we started this distillery back in 2018. The last time there was a distillery on Portsea Island was 1824.
Oh,
So
wow.
a good while previous, and that was just a gin distillery. There's never been a rum distillery on Portsea Island till us. So the thought of making this business big enough, secure enough, and with a firm enough base to out survive me is something that I'm really motivated to do.
That's a great goal as well. And I think it's a great motivation when you link it to something that's bigger than yourself. You kind of can't run out of that energy and determination,
No,
focus to really make it happen. I think that's great. And that linked with the quality of product and the love for the product is
mm,
just, is a phenomenal motivation. But kind of taking that, then your motivation, your kind of point on legacy and where you're looking to go. What do you think you've learned about yourself since starting this distillery? What do you think, kind of being in business for yourself, the challenges you've had to face, and kind of having such a big goal around legacy and where you want to go? What's it taught you about yourself, Vince?
oh, I think uh, I'll answer that as an ex-serviceman, if I may,
Of course.
and on behalf of all the people that are currently serving and that will have to leave, and those that have just left. There's a big thing within the service when you're about to leave, and it's called transition, and everyone talks about transitioning to civilian life, blah blah blah. I didn't find that particularly difficult because I wasn't a particularly pompous military officer, but there is this sort of, there still is, and I think it'll still take some time to get over. There's still this sort of, perception of who you might be if you're an ex-service person leaving the military, whether it's, all three forces are the same in that respect. So employers will perhaps employ you for the wrong reasons and indeed the right reasons, but what they really don't know is what they're employing, because most of us have a lot more inside us and skills and attributes and things to bring to commerce than we ever thought and knew that we had. I, for one, was not really aware of how entrepreneurial I am, how good I am at coming up with an idea and making it happen and seeing it through to its end. Product development, etc., etc. Why would I? I hadn't, I was in the Navy for nearly 26 years. I left the Navy, went and worked for Geeseline, and then started the business. And I've learned that I do have a lot more skills and a lot more to offer than anybody would ever have suggested that I did on leaving the service. So I answer that question as an ex-serviceman as much as for myself. And I think I must just throw in the word, and I've used it earlier, the word resilient.
Yeah.
And the fact that the two co-founders, myself and Giles, both ex-RN, we are very resilient individuals.
Yeah.
Give you a very, very quick anecdote to explain what I mean by that. The bad weather last year, of which we had quite a bit, didn't we? Storms, etc. We have a couple of marquees, one which is sort of semi-permanent and one which is less permanent. Well, before we had the semi-permanent one, we had two not so permanent ones. They would forever get battered by the weather. And there was, just a complete freak occurrence once when they were up. We didn't see the weather coming. We're constantly looking at the weather, but it just happened out of nowhere. Completely decimated both of our marquees. And I went in the next morning. Well, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to cry, give up, or what. But I stood there. I scratched my head. I looked at it with Giles. We pulled it all apart. We knocked this, we knocked that. And from the two, we managed to get one. And we only needed one because we had an event coming up. That event went so well, we bought another of the others. So it's just, so I think that and you step back from that, and A, you're proud of it. B, it was, it was a bit crap at the time, but it demonstrates resilience. And I think everybody's got resilience. It's not just because we're ex-service people, but everyone's got a little bit of resilience in them, especially if they're passionate about what they're doing. And I think that's a really good example of resilience. And we picked ourselves up, we dusted ourselves down, we got it sorted, and we carried on.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think it's a great way to kind of explain it. So, Vince, what does the future hold? Where are you going? Where's the theory going to be?
Well, the future is very exciting. Very exciting. We're, as I say, we're just on the beginnings of the aged rum piece, and we are at the vanguard of rum production in the UK, leading the way really in so many ways. So we've got all sorts of projects lined up. We're going to start selling casks in the same way that the Whiskey Boys do.
Nice.
There is a little bit of interest in the marketplace for rum as a commodity, and we want to make English rum a commodity. So that's one side. The future is, I think, looking quite rosy, but of course we have to temper that with real world issues. We've reached our glass ceiling in terms of growth. We've done everything organically to date. Okay. So we own a lot of the equity of the company. And like most distilleries of our age, you reach the point where you can't grow and get to the next level without an investment, an injection of cash. So we're literally in the final throes of putting together an investment deck to go out to every man and his dog that may or may not wish to look at investing in a fantastic, young, resilient, forward-thinking, entrepreneurial company like ours, in order to get, and we're not looking for a huge sum of money. We're looking for £250,000 We need it for a little bit more capital investment into equipment. We need to put more boots on the ground to sell more, and we need to spend some money on marketing, which hitherto we've not had any money to do. So yeah, if we can secure that investment, then the future for us, I think, is very rosy, because we are right at the front of what we're
Yeah,
doing here.
kind of
So,
pioneers of that industry in the
yeah,
UK.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. No, look, it's so exciting. It's an exciting time to be kind of where you guys are, and it's great to hear the story from the inside. I've seen it for a while from the outside, if you like, outside looking in, but it's great to hear it from the inside. So, Vince, just on that note, then, if you were to start up a business again today, what advice would you give to someone that's looking to do that?
Oh, that is a very good question, and one which I suppose can be quickly summed up as nothing ventured, nothing gained. Um, I have never been a talker. I've always been a doer. Um,
Okay.
Many of us, I'm sure, have sat many a year, many an hour, sorry, in a pub over a pint talking with mates where, someone's got a really big idea and they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and they never do anything.
Yeah.
Um, that's not a criticism. Not everybody can be in the right place at the right time to set up a business like we did. But I would say, if you do have an idea of something that you think might work, then go for it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, I don't think you can ever regret starting a business and it not working, because at least you had a go. If you never have a go, you'll never know whether it's going to work or not. So I think that would be my advice would be, if you think it's a solid enough venture, then go for it.
Take that
You need
leap.
to
Yeah.
have you need to have a really good business plan. You need to know what you want to do. You need to know the direction of travel you want to go in. Of course, any plan is a basis for change. So you don't have to stick to that, but it needs to be there so that you can navigate at least in the right direction. And you need to be committed, I think, I would say as well, because don't go into it half-heartedly, because, hey, guess what? You'll only get half-hearted results. So it's dive in, have some fun.
I think it kind of links you back as well to that point you made a couple of times about resilience. It's like, so, and I think I agree. Actually, take the leap, be resilient, and be prepared to do the hard work, and the rewards can come after.
Yeah, I mean, and if you do something that we've all heard it, people talking about, if you do something you love, you never work a day again. That's kind of true. I probably work harder now than I've ever worked in terms of hours in,
Yeah,
and sometimes, really long days and really busy long days. But I'm not working.
you're
I'm not
enjoying
working.
it.
I'm enjoying it. And every now and again you get a bit tired. You think, "Oh, do you know what? I need a break." So you have a break.
Yeah,
Um, but I think you have to believe in what you want to do, and you have to be committed to it. If you don't, then well, it's like anything in life. It'll just fizzle out, and what's the point?
oh, I agree. Oh, I think there's some massive lessons in there. I think the resilience point, the take the leap, and other things that you brought out today, I think are great lessons. Vince, look, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate that. I wish you and the distillery all the best for the future. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you once again, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, cool. My pleasure. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vince.